What's happening, sports fans? Christian Pedersen, Coach David Ring. We're back for another week of the San Diego Prep Insider Baseball podcast here in the Canyonside Cages. Dave, you ready to play a little If the Playoffs Started Today?
Oh, of course.
All right. Let's start, though, with Dave Stingers, because every week we like to highlight a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of in between, and we'll get to our top 10s, we'll get to our game balls, but right off the bat, let's get some of those balls that are leaving the yard.
Got it. Yeah, it's a tight race this year, man. It's pretty interesting to see. No one's really above and beyond, with an enormous total. So
although everybody's kind of above and beyond as a group.
Big number of guys with a lot of home runs this year. So McGreasy's leading the county with 5. A guy that I usually talk about every year, Zeke Shockley, who plays at Calvin Christian, he's up to 4 now. He's got hot. Michael Jorg at Francis Parker, he's also got 4. I mean, there's a ton of guys in the league with 4 home runs right now. And Spencer Jones, who's caught fire with 3 over at La Costa Canyon. It's interesting to see the Torrey Pines still has their big horses on the top of the home run leader chart, and that's pretty much why they're in the top 3 right now. They are slugging baseballs.
Well, and they've got several people at 3, several people at 2. Like you said, they are a launch pad central over there.
Exactly.
You brought up an interesting thing mentioning the rankings, so let's segue straight into that. Before we get to our game balls, give us your top 10.
All right, Francis Parker's going to sneak into number 10 for me. They are playing some good baseball. They had a couple tough losses here and there, but I definitely think they're a top 10 team. Grossmont, number 9. Helix, I'm going to move down to number 8 after a couple tough losses. Cathedral, I still think they're a top 10 team, even though they just recently lost a tough game to Torrey Pines. RB, number 6. LCC, number 5. San Marcos, 4. Poway, they are on fire right now. I moved them up to 3. They've got almost 17 wins, I think. Torrey Pines, number 2. The big part of that is their hitters. And Eastlake, haven't lost a game in a long time. These guys only have 2 losses to the whole season.
Yeah, that Eastlake team is pretty ridiculous. Here's the San Diego Prep Insider top 10. We agree with you on number 10, Dave. Francis Parker making their way back into the conversation. Number 9, Grossmont. Number 8, LCC. Number 7, Helix. Number 6, Cathedral Catholic. Number 5, we've got Poway. Number 4, Torrey Pines. 3, Rancho Bernardo. 2 is Eastlake. 1 is San Marcos.
Wow.
Basically just trying to do everything we can to mix things up a little bit right now between you and me, and create some tension maybe going into the playoffs about who really is that number 1 seed, because this is not a runaway year. The last couple of years it's been everybody looking up at either an Eastlake or an RB, or there was a small contingent. This year it is realistically there's San Marcos, Eastlake up at the top, and then there's a group of maybe 8 to 10 teams that you could say could be in that mix?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I made a mistake. I said that Cathedral lost to Torrey. As a Cathedral lost to Madison, actually 11-6 recently, and they're another team that are on the bubble in my top 10 because of the fact that they've beat some really good teams. They've also lost some teams to some to some teams that maybe they shouldn't have lost to, but I'd say Madison is definitely a fringe team. Santa Fe Christian has won a lot of games. Mission Hills has been winning a ton this year. So
you could also perhaps put Granite Hills in that conversation.
Definitely.
As just to say that 3 through 12 is separated by 1 or 2 wins, one or 2 losses. Game balls?
Oh, definitely.
You got game balls. I got game balls. You want to go first?
I spread them out throughout the county today. I'm going to start down south. I got Juan Silva. From what I can see, he's got 32 hits at San Ysidro.
Okay.
He's got 32 hits, and from what I can tell, this might be leading the county. 32 hits at this point in the season is pretty ridiculous.
That's insane.
I'm trying not to butcher this one.
Go for it. Just charge through it.
D'Artagnan Van Dusen. He's a senior at Lincoln. 439 average, 2 home runs. Every time I go through the stats, I keep seeing him on the leaderboards. Very impressive. These guys are playing some good baseball over there. Wanted to give a shout out to a guy on Madison, Devin Padua, pitcher/hitter. He was 2 for 4 against Cathedral in their 11-6 victory.
Cal State San Marcos commit.
Definitely. Kid can play. He's hitting 429 at this point in the season. I wouldn't be surprised to see him over 400 to end the year. Scripps Ranch, they shut out Mira Mesa to halt their 5-game win streak. The man on the mound threw a CG, Will Van Duren.
Yeah, CG shutout is a big turning point in the season.
It's a battle for Mira Mesa Boulevard / the 15. That was a big game for Scripps Ranch, beating a team that's 1-5. And Nate Nankill will go all the way back down to Bonita Vista. It's a winning pitcher against Chula Vista, and their 5-3 win. Also went 2 for 3 with a triple. That kid's starting to really roll. Sophomore season for this guy, and he's pitching, hitting, leading these guys to wins. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, that Bonita team is an interesting case study of they have some dudes, but they just have to have that dude do a little extra. Like Nate has to hit and pitch. Mm-hmm. But, you know, he's also supposed to be their shortstop. So they are maybe 1 or 2 pieces short of being a dominant team, but when they are on, they can come in and bust up a bracket any way, shape, or form. They kind of remind me of Valhalla last year, who came in and upset Saints, that everyone was favoring Saints so heavily. Valhalla comes in and just completely takes a torch to the bracket. Could be looking at Bonita Vista being that team. Let's get to some of the SDPI game balls. Nick Siemens from RB, 4 for 7, 2 home runs in 2 games last week. Amelia Luna from Castle Park, 30 for 30 now in the season in stolen base attempts, 6 for 6 last week. Dave, 30 stolen bases, that's an insane amount in a high school season, yes?
And to be honest, this is one of the guys that I don't know why this guy hasn't committed yet. This guy is an absolute stud, plays an amazing shortstop, gets on base, can steal, an absolute game changer. And like I said, it's just surprising to me a team hasn't picked him up yet because of his skills. We like to call a guy like this a gamer, you know.
He's a dude. He's just a gamer.
When you put him in the game, you can expect for him to rise, you know, when the spotlight's on him. When you need a hit, runner on second base, game's on the line, that's the guy you want up right there.
Another person you want in when the game is on the line is Graham Cartwright from the Bishop's School. He got a no-hitter versus Foothills Christian last week. That's going to round out the game balls, but now let's just talk about the games that are yet to come. And what we've got coming up in the next couple of weeks is a lot of things that will decide the playoffs. Yeah. So, Dave, I want to just, like I said, throw it into that hypothetical that if the playoffs started today, ... We're going to work through all of the divisions. So we're going to mention a lot of teams in the next 5 to 10 minutes. Bear with us. We're going to try our best to keep all the names and records and wins and losses and runs scored straight. We'll work our way up, bottom to top.
Sure.
All right, Division 5. We're not going to go through all 12 because that would the thinking would hurt our brain eventually at that point. Top 5 teams, though, right now in D5 are Lincoln, Southwest San Diego, Tri-City Christian, Army-Navy, High-Tech Chula Vista. You got Calvin Christian and Borrego Springs also in that mix. Dave, if the playoffs started today, do you see this as a bracket that plays out in order with Lincoln being that de facto #1 seed? Or is there somebody in this top mix right now that you're like, I got a little more confidence that they would be my real #1?
To be honest, there's a lot of Lincoln hitters, and they just seem extra strong this year. Like I said, when I look at the stats, I see D.R. Tagnan. I see a bunch of other guys really, you know, thumping the baseball. As you can see, they're really scoring a lot of runs, 135 runs scored. And compared to Tri-City Christian, I mean, Tri-City Christian scored a little more, but I definitely see the leadership in Lincoln. They've got the senior leadership, and so that's the team that I'm kind of going to roll with right now.
I have to ask, with Grand Salami Saderstrom playing for High-Tech Chula Vista, do you see a big bat like that being able to in the shortened down, got to win 1 to 3 games, just, you know, right now in the playoffs type situation? Do you see a big bat like that being effective, or is he somebody that can get pitched around and really weaken that offensive output?
They've had a couple bats on that team. I've been impressed with the way they've been swinging it this year, but good pitching trumps good hitting on certain days, and so they're not going to be hitting bombs every day, you know, and so it's going to be tough. They're going to have to pitch. Kai also pitches and throws like 85. So when they got him on the mound, there's not many teams in San Diego that are going to hit him. So they've definitely got a chance. But like I said, with the pitching, it's got to be one of those things where you got multiple pitchers to kind of show up, and that's what I see Lincoln kind of doing.
I will say this. We talked about Southwest San Diego a little bit a couple weeks ago in terms of the league play that they are in with Mar Vista down there in the Metro Mesa South. It could be interesting to see, but I'm going to say that right now I'm pushing not all my chips, but darn near all of them in on High-Tech Chula Vista. I just, in the shortened, you're looking for that dude, like you said, a gamer to step up. I like Saterstrom. I like High-Tech Chula Vista and their ability to win in a shortened season. Yeah. Moving up to Division 4. Here we go, Dave. Holtville, Mar Vista, Monta Vista, Castle Park. That's our top 4. Also in the mix, Foothills Christian, Maranatha Christian, defending D5 champions Maranatha Christian, and San Diego Academy. Dave, same kind of question. Are you... Yes, I'm in on Holtville. They are the #1 seed. Or do you see somebody in this mix right now that you're kind of saying, that could be interesting?
Yeah, the 2 teams that I like are Mar Vista and Castle Park. Those guys are kind of middle of the pack as far as you see here in the rankings, but Castle Park is...
It's not middle of the pack, middle of the upper echelon.
True, middle of the pack and the upper echelon. So it's... Castle Park's got guys that want to win really bad this year, and that definitely, when you've got guys that are extra motivated to win because, you know, you're a junior and a senior and you want your last 2 years to be good, I think that can really play. Monta Vista, I like them. Maranatha, they haven't been scoring as many runs this year as I've seen in the past. I like Castle Park, to be honest.
Okay.
My favorite team out of all of them.
I really like a Castle Park Mar Vista final in this bracket. I think that this is 2 teams that already see each other, and so why not have that drag into the finals? And
totally.
Because sometimes it is fun to be like, oh, Brawley versus somebody from in here. You know, that's not a matchup that we see every now and then. You know, that's a fun to see in the playoffs. But this is one where it could be fun to have this be the 4th time or the 3rd time that these 2 teams play each other by the end of the season. They know each other. They know how to face each other. That really brings out that cat and mouse game.
Exactly.
And then like you said with Luna, just being a dude who has that will to win. I want to see, not that I'm predicting this will happen, but I want to see him steal home to win CIF.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if he pitched, stole 4 bases in the game, hit a couple triples.
Get that man an ice bath by the end of the...
Kid can do it all, man.
Yeah, and then he holds the ceremony and he presents the trophies to everybody. Up to Division 3 we go. Dave, here we go. Top 4 for Division 3. Imperial, Bishop School, San Ysidro, Claremont. Also in the mix, we have University City, Coronado, and Classical Academy. Now, keep in mind, folks, what we are doing right now is just the if it ended today, and there's also the whole, other 5 to 10 teams that could or will make it into these brackets. So these are not us saying, here's who we are picking as the #1 team in this division. It's just a kind of a hypothetical, fun mathematical game to play. Dave, Imperial, Bishop, San Ysidro, Claremont, that's the top 4. You mind if I take the first stab at this one? I absolutely love San Ysidro and what they have brought up until league, when obviously you're going to take some tough league losses versus Eastlake and the likes of that kind of a league play that you have. So I'm not hitting the panic button when they start to lose games after such a red hot start, but I'm almost investing more in them that, we talk about some of these teams that go charging into the postseason at 18-1. And they're just so, riding high on themselves. Right. And that works to a small degree, but I also really start to get worried about those teams because they have not had that, we lost. What can we go fix? Let's, hey, you're kind of chasing this curveball. Let's shorten that up. Learn how to play this. Learn how to, take some lessons from that. So I love the fact that San Ysidro, after a red hot start, takes a couple L's, has that chance to build themselves back up into something. And I really think that right now them, and I'll throw University City into this mix because we've seen it on their best days, University City can really hang with just near anybody.
Yeah, that would be not my sleeper team in this group, but a team that is on fire right now. They got Zach White, Isaac Wolfkind, Jacob Friedman, Eric Waldachuk. I mean, I see a hungry team over there. I see a team that plays with a chip on their shoulder. Obviously, I like UC because I went there, but when I watch them play, they are a fiery team that brings a lot to the table as far as enthusiasm, and they're a bunch of team-oriented guys. It's fun to watch.
Also, got to just point out that Bishops has been a team that has been in the playoffs deep a lot and not made it to that final. So this could be interesting to see if this is the year that they finally break through. We talked about in the game balls that their pitching is looking good right now, and that is a huge, huge asset going into the playoffs. Is you'd almost take a team with good pitching over any sorts of hitting if you can get that level of pitching. Anything else on D3, or can we move up to D2?
Oh, that's good.
All right, Division 2, here we go, Dave. Canyon Crest, Mission Hills, Francis Parker, Otay Ranch. That's the top 4 right now. Let's also throw SFC, Sage Creek, and Escondido into that mix. Couple of teams on here that are either currently or have been in our top 10 in the county. So even though we're down in Division 2 right now, and we're not talking about the open division, the best of the best, we're still talking about teams that could end this season very much saying we were one of the best in the county.
Yeah.
Is there less clarity and room between these top couple teams?
Yeah, this is a jam-packed top of the list here. I mean, you got Francis Parker, Mission Hills, Canyon Crest Academy. If I had to put a head-to-head matchup with 3 of those teams, it would be hard to pick who would win in a 5-game series. I mean,
yeah, let alone 5 total games of the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, it's almost you're guessing who's going to come and play their best game on that given day. But with Parker having as many leaders as they do, with Canyon Crest, same thing, having as many leaders as they do. I see those 2 as the top 2 teams. Mission Hills is sneaky, though. They're already 3-1 in league, playing some good baseball. Pretty impressive.
To me, this one, more than any other bracket, comes down to game planning and how you approach going into the playoffs, because each one of these teams has a definitive ace on the mound that they can trot out there and hang with anybody, between Tyler Thornton at SFC and Randy Abshire at Otay Ranch, Sterling Hayes at Parker. They've got people that you could say on that day with that lineup, they will be the favorites versus this team. But if you start to say, well, all of the aces are going to face each other in that first round, so it'll become a very interesting, does one of these teams say, okay, look, we're going to put you game 2, and we're going to trust our offense and the rest of our pitching staff in game 1. And when I start to look at that, I'm all about Otay and Francis Parker. And I love what the 2 of them can do, and I think that it's really going to be very interesting because the teams on the edge of those brackets, we've seen Canyon Crest lose a couple to Carlsbad this week. SFC, we've seen both ends of the spectrum. Shutout wins and hanging with Torrey Pines, and when they are at their best with Tyler Thornton, they are one of the best. But when they don't have their it, they won't be able to win this bracket. So agree with you that this is the most confusing, and I kind of like Otay all of a sudden. But let's transition though into, we're going to call this one Division 1/Open, because the way that the playoff system works here in San Diego is they take the whole of Division 1. Top 8 teams from Division 1 get placed in their own open division bracket, then everybody else from D1 makes the playoffs. So technically everybody will make the playoffs in Division 1. Everybody's going to have an opportunity to upset somebody, take a torch to someone's bracket. What we're talking about right now is who will be in open, and then as a subset of that, who will make the 1 to 3 seeds in Division 1. So the way this is looking right now, Eastlake, Poway, San Marcos, Torrey Pines are all up in open. They are probably a lock to say that they are in open. Then it goes RB, LCC, Helix, Cathedral, Grossmont, Madison, Granite Hills. So basically everybody that we talked about in our top 10 discussion, sans Parker, because they are down in Division 2, is in this mix right now. So instead of just asking you to kind of rehash our top 10 rankings, let me ask you this: is there 1 through 4, and then everybody else? Is there 1 through 6, and then everybody else? Where do you just see this as any of these 10 teams could make it to open and beat anybody on any given day? Sort of navigate us through what you're feeling about the confidence of just, oh, this is a runaway bracket, or oh, this is anybody's bracket.
I feel like the teams at the top of the bracket are pretty evenly matched right now. All those teams hit and pitch pretty consistently. Where it starts to get unclear for me is when we get to Helix, Cathedral, Grossmont, Madison, and Granite. These teams are all very inconsistent right now. Helix is 0-2 in league. Cathedral's lost, like I said, they lost to Madison recently. They've got a lot more losses than I expected this year. I had them number 1 to start the season just by looking on paper, but this is where it gets interesting for me is the battle for that number 8 spot, because that number 8 spot is going to have to play
either in Eastlake or San Marcos.
That number 1.
Yeah.
So that's where it gets interesting. If I was one of those teams, I would not want to be at the end of the bracket, to be honest. To make it life a little bit easier on myself, I'd want to win some more games, win those tough games, get myself up in the bracket a little more, so I can get into the playoffs not having to play a number 1 right away.
Although we did see some very interesting with Madison beating Eastlake last year to just complicate and add extra games here and there. I'll say this. There are 2 or 3 very interesting plot lines that you brought up. Helix losing a couple league games. Last year, Helix didn't win league. Santana won that league.
Right.
Helix still, with their pitching, made it to the finals. So when you start to talk about some of this, the LCC and Torrey and RB all play in the same league. San Marcos and Mission Hills are in the same league. Yeah. You're talking about a very, very, very tight race as is, where everybody's sort of stepping on each other's toes.
Exactly.
What I see out of all this, though, is to me, bottom line, we are talking about big bats. We are talking about teams that knock just the cover off the ball like they have never seen before in this county. So what we need to really address the fact is that the offensive production dies off after about 6 or 7 teams right now. So to me, I'm looking at anybody over 100 runs for, under 100 runs for is where my confidence, and that goes down at LCC. And then you sneak back in there with Grossmont. So that to me is kind of the deciding factors right now. If you are at that Goliath offensive production notes,
scoring 100+ runs,
scoring 100+ runs, that's where I will say that regardless of the other side of it, of the pitching or the matchups or the league or anything like that, I just I'm going to invest in the offensive output right now from those teams.
Totally. It's interesting to see because you can tell who plays a lot of tight games.
Yeah.
Like Madison will play a lot of tight games. They've allowed 85 runs, 100 runs for, they've hit 100 runs in. I mean, you can tell, like in Eastlake, they've only allowed 40 runs throughout the whole season. I mean, that's, like you said,
it's drastic.
The teams that are playing in tight games but can also score that extra run and push that run across is huge. When you get to the playoffs, and whether it's high school baseball or Major League Baseball, there becomes a sense of who can perform and knock that one run in or hit that one double. When you're facing an ace, I mean, how many times are you going to get that ace's good pitch? You're not going to get it on the barrel that often.
1 in your 3 at-bats,
right?
1 in your 4 at-bats.
So you're playing for a double sometimes, you're playing to score runs, sometimes you're playing small ball, but yeah, some of these teams don't even have to do that. They're knocking the ball around the field.
Well, we will see how this all comes down. Folks, next week, please check in. We're going to have a very, very special edition episode. We are going to be doing our SDPI fantasy draft.
Yes.
Dave's going to have a team. I'm going to have a team. Tommy's going to have a team. We're just going to have to see who ends up where.
I feel very strong about my team this year. I have an idea who I want.
Last year, the Twitter polls were definitely in favor of your team. Like there was a lot of support and outpouring for your team.
I had a good time.
And basically, it's just you had Calvin Mitchell, and you were just going to hit all sorts of hypothetical home runs on the rest of us. But that being said, Dave, I think I got an ace up my sleeve on this year's team.
I'm going all Dinger squad again.
Going the Dingers for days. Tommy's going to – I know Emilio Luna's going to be on Tommy's team. I know for sure Emilio Luna's going to be there stealing bases for Tommy's team. But all of that will happen next week. Thank you very much for sticking with us to the very end of this. He is David Ring. Dave, where can they find you on Twitter?
At David Ring 4.
They can come into Canyonside Cages, check out all the great facilities you have here. I'm Christian Pedersen. You can find me on Twitter at Mr. CPED. The show is SD Prep Insider. We'll see you next week, sports fans.